Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Audiophile Wannabe Show. My name is Gavin, your host here, and we do like to remind our viewers that whereas beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so too is sound in the ear of the listener. Well, happy holidays to you. And yesterday, I began a project tinkering around with the WiiM Ultra Streamer DAC and the Aiyima A07 Max amplifier, this little guy right here. So the goal of this project is to understand just how good that combination of components are, because number one, very low budget hi-fi system for about $429, $430 is the going price for that combo right now. And I'd like to understand exactly how good they can be compared to some higher tier components. And so far in this experiment, they seem to keep getting better and better. I've learned a few new things, and some of the things that I've learned over the past couple of years have been reaffirmed. So we'll go over some of those items, and we'll talk about how good of a deal this combination of component is for the money. So starting yesterday, I put a video out just talking about my initial reaction to how good this combination compares to my Cambridge Audio and Prima Luna reference system. So for the money, the soundstage and the sound performance was comparable, and I tried some additional tweaks over the past 24 hours, and now we'll get into those to share the differences and compare the contrast. So the first thing that I did last night was pulled out the second A07 that I had to run these in dual mono to see how that compared to the single amplifier. The tone was a little bit better. The clarity was a little bit better. They seemed to breathe a little bit easier. The amplifiers, just by having two of them, didn't seem like it took as much to push the clips, which the single amplifier does not have any issue pushing the clips, being a nice high efficiency speaker. But I did run into two issues, and we'll talk briefly about both. So the first thing that stood out was, oddly enough, and this was a really random thing, but I began to have intermittent streaming problems with the WiiM. So I hadn't had any issues with it in this room with the single amplifier, or in the other two rooms in the house that I've used this product on with other amplifiers. So I went online, did some research just to see if this was a common problem. But there were some issues that showed with network Wi-Fi, and I had recently had my Wi-Fi improved with AT&T. The signal showed very strong, so I didn't think it was that. Began tinkering around with the WiiM app. There were a couple of suggestions that AI recommended to check, but those seemed good too. And I just got to looking at the setup that you see right here, and at first I thought there is no way that the streaming could be affected by the amp or the WiiM just sitting in between these two amplifiers. And call me crazy, but I moved them back about 6 to 8 inches. As you can see in this photo, they're initially they were basically flush with the front face of the WiiM, and so now they're back maybe 8 inches or so. And once I moved those back, the streaming issues went away, no issues. So that's, again, call me crazy, but just moving those amps back did help resolve the streaming issues. So I don't know what exactly was going on there. And who knows, maybe there was just an issue going on with the actual Wi-Fi at the time, and I just looked up and got the timing right. But that seemed like it had something to do with the amps. Of course, I could go back and relocate them to the front of the face where they were previously, just to test and see if it cranks back up again, see if I can recreate the concern, but not going to right now. And another issue came up that I had experienced a couple of months ago with a set of AudioQuest cables. So I had an issue with an out of phase condition with these cables that caused the soundstage to basically, from the very center of the room, to split, and there was a void in the middle of the room because the negative and positive ends of the connector were reversed. So AudioQuest simply turned that around, corrected it, sent them back, and they sounded great. And with this setup, once I went to the dual monoblock mode, for whatever reason, had a similar experience in the room with the soundstage splitting and moving to where there's another void in the center image. Kind of lost that center image, and everything kind of moved a little bit. So haven't exactly root caused that yet, That's not going to be on the agenda today or the next couple of days. I've got some other items that I'm looking at here, but basically went back to the single unit. As you can see, the cables here are back in the one unit. The soundstage was basically resolved. That center image came back, and everything instrument-wise was back where I'm accustomed to hearing them in space with the various songs that I was listening to. So if you're familiar with these type of little amplifiers, and these are new to me working with them, so I don't claim to be an expert on any of these type items. I'm just sharing with you my experiences. But if you've got more experience with these and know what may have happened that would have caused a split in the soundstage or some out of phase type condition, go ahead and put some comments in the box below if you don't mind. Let me know what your experience has been. And one other thing I started tinkering with last night and picked back up this morning was I did go ahead and put in the GR Research cables in the system. As you can see there, Danny's interconnect cables and speaker cables are connected, and my goodness, once I put these into the system, that WiiM and the amp really came alive. The clarity, the tone, the space within the soundstage in between instruments really improved. The refinement of the instruments did improve. The vocals, my goodness, the vocals on Norah Jones and Alison Krauss really started to pop. The saxophone on Stan Getz, Windows of the World or Windows to the World, I can't remember the name of the song, but that saxophone really popped. So cables do make a difference, believe it or not, like it or not, they do make a difference if you've got a good soundstage. Okay, so in the spirit of trying to keep things very affordable, because obviously cables can get very expensive very quickly, I highly recommend watching Tharbamar's videos on do-it-yourself cables. Really like his videos on do-it-yourself cables. He's got power cables, speaker cables. This is a photo of his video for interconnect cables, and one that he's done for speaker cables is right here. So I'll put links to these videos. But do-it-yourself cables can really improve quality. I will eventually get to making some cables and comparing and contrasting the quality, the sound quality of do-it-yourself cables to Danny's cables and the Audio Quest cables, just to see what the difference is. Do they compare? Are they very close? Because if they're in the ballpark, if do-it-yourself cables are in the ballpark of high-end cables, then you can get away with higher-end quality for very little money, relatively speaking. Especially if you just decide to go with the cables themselves and not spend money on the connectors. You don't have to use banana plugs. You don't have to use spades. If you just want to twist the copper at the end of the cable and bypass that additional touch point of the connector, you're getting a direct signal into the speaker cable back in or into your speaker. So, which would even be better because you're eliminating 2 touch points for that signal along the way. And as I mentioned in the video from yesterday, I was still hearing some slight issues in the soundstage. Not bad, nothing major to be concerned about if you just want to enjoy some good music listening. But if you do get into some critical listening, it might be a little irritating to you to hear some voids here and there in the soundstage. So, just to see how good the WiiM might be, I went ahead and plugged up the Cambridge CXC CD transport. So not going for aesthetics here by any means, just doing some testing and comparing devices or components right now. But really glad I put that CD transport in the system because once I started playing CDs, all the issues which weren't many, but the issues that I did hear with the soundstage went away. The overall sound quality at this point were very, very comparable to my Cambridge system. I mean, yes, there's still the same difference with some subtleties and refinement and real clarity and I think presence. And just it boils down to realism. The Cambridge system with the Prima Luna has a greater sense of overall realism, and it gets easier to listen and be more believable that you're just in the room with some various musicians or at a concert enjoying some good music. So listening to this system, these two components, it still sounds like you're listening to some kind of a system. You don't quite get the same experience of just getting lost in the music to the degree that you do with to the degree that I do with the Cambridge system. But nevertheless, the overall sound quality was comparable, very comparable. So that being said, the value of these two components together, if you're looking for a good entry-level system, the WiiM Ultra and the Aiyima A07 Max are astounding. If you get a good soundstage set in your listening room and maybe get some do-it-yourself cables to keep the cost down low, you can definitely get some really good quality sound. Now, just to be fair here, I did use an Audio Quest optical cable, so I wasn't using just a standard optical cable. And we'll look at some cost analysis on that subject here in just a minute or two. But before we go there, kind of wrapping things up with the WiiM, what this means so far as the performance that this brings to the table, this unit, is that the DAC does a great job being comparable to some higher end products. My standard reference streamer DAC is the CXN 100 by Cambridge, great component. And this one right here does a really good job comparable to the CXN once I began using CD. So the streamer aspect of this product, it's good, but it's not really good. But it probably can be. I haven't tried this, but if you get to where you can use an Ethernet cable instead of streaming Wi-Fi, I would assume that the streaming quality would greatly improve and maybe be comparable to CD. Okay, well, I'll be honest, I forgot where I was. I wound up taking a little bit longer than I thought to pull up some cables off of Amazon and Parts Express, and along with some connectors to do some price comparisons to see what they currently are. But we'll go over those now. And if this is a complete deviation from what I was just talking about and I went down a rabbit hole, I apologize. I forgot where I was about 10 or 15 minutes ago. Okay, so on Parts Express, they've got some Mogami cable. So for speaker cable, Mogami is a highly respected cable. They've got a 2-strand 12-gauge cable for $4.29 a foot. And they also have this 4-strand 12-gauge for $7.69 a foot. You'll see both of these cables on Tharbermar's videos. And on Amazon, I found these little guys. These it says pure copper gold-plated banana plugs. So for $8 for 4 of these, that's pretty awesome. And they are on sale, and it says list price $16.90. I think that's right. Yeah, $16.90. But even at $16.90 is a great deal for 4 of those. And this is a Belden interconnect balanced microphone cable. Interconnect cable, $5.80 a foot. So you can get these on eBay. These are also listed on Tharbermar's videos. That's how I found out about these. And another example off of Amazon as far as RCA plugs that you can get for around $8 a pair as well. All right, let's not forget optical cables. We won't get into Ethernet and HDMI and all those kind of cables, but we'll look at upscale audio. They've got a wide selection of all different kinds of high-end cables. The Pangea Audio Premier optical cable, one friend of mine has used this cable and has had some good results with it. Said he did notice a difference, and that one is about right at about $30. And moving right on up the line is a $65 cable by Audio Quest, their Forest OptiLink optical cable. And just one more Audio Quest cable on upscale audio. This is their Cinnamon cable, optical cable, so right at about $100. And again, if you're looking at Ethernet cables, HDMI, upscale has those as well. So what does this mean cost-wise if you really want to get into an entry-level system that can compete with some higher-tier systems and sound really good? So for $429, that's going to get you the Aiyima and the WiiM Ultra. For another $155 and $56, that can cover the speaker cables and interconnect cables. And then $60 on the optical cable that we looked at. That's going to total right at $700. And if you're looking to get a total system, I'm sure you've seen, maybe you've seen Randy the Cheap Audio Man's video. Well, not just one video, but a lot of them where he raves about these Sony speakers. Covered those in the video from yesterday. So I think that was the video from yesterday. But those bookshelf speakers by Sony are 208, and then remember that the WiiM also has a sub output. So with those bookshelf speakers, if you would like to add a sub, Monoprice makes a really good 8-inch powered 60-watt subwoofer, and that's 140 right now. So if you're looking to get a complete system that will definitely perform at a higher level for $1,048, you can really enjoy some really good quality sound. And of course, you can tweak the components that we covered to reduce that cost, cable-wise and connector-wise, if you want to stay under $1,000. And another really good quality about the Aiyima amp is that you can continue to build on the quality of this system by making some improvements to that little amp. You can change out the op amps, change out the capacitors, and you can also upgrade the power supply. Tone, clarity, overall dynamics will improve with any of those additions. A quick wrap up for today's video: the Aiyima A07 Max and the WiiM Ultra continue to show themselves to be formidable adversaries for some higher tier components, and with some do-it-yourself cables you can certainly improve the sound quality even further. And if you want to continue to take it up another notch sound quality wise, go ahead and make some modifications to the Aiyima amplifier. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. But real quick before we do wrap up, there are some additional improvements that I'm going to continue to make to this mini system to find out how good it can get. So just look for a couple of those videos here over the next couple of weeks, and we'll go from there. But thank you again for tuning in today. If you've liked the content, really appreciate you clicking that like button, and hopefully you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel, as that will certainly help the channel to grow. So thank you again so much for tuning in. Have a great day, and really appreciate your comments. Some of you guys out there have put out some comments recently. A lot of good information. Really appreciate the conversation. And thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Y'all have a good day.